Good evening, COP family. You all look so good. I wonder if you feel as good. Do you feel as good? When I listened to young Anita speaking, and I listened to her being introduced and what she had achieved in her personal life, for a young person in terms of education and professional development. And then I listened to her speak about doing the job of a counselor and what she had been able to achieve in a matter really of months as a counselor in the constituency of St. Augustine in this local government area. I could not help but think that the fact that the partnership had come together, the fact that the COP had established itself as a political force in this country, the fact that opportunity had been given to people like these will make all the difference in the future of Trinidad and Tobago. And we must not forget that. It is important, it's very important. And congratulations, Anita, on what you have been able to do for yourself, but more than that, what you've been able to do, sharing your talent with the country. And I listened to the chairman of the UNC. I happen to be involved very much, as so many of us in the COP were, in a campaign in which she was not successful. But I listened to her talk as the chairman of the UNC, speaking about her own experience with the leader of the COP, and speaking about how this had evolved and how the partnership between the parties had evolved into a partnership on the ground in the constituencies, and then a partnership in government that had made all the changes, all the development in infrastructure, all the touching of communities that had been neglected. It had made all this possible in the short space of 5 years. And I couldn't again help but be moved, because sometimes we take these things for granted, and we take it so much for granted that we fail to appreciate what we did in 2010 and what the people came together to do in 2010. And some people are so callous and disregarding of this achievement of collective responsibility and community action that they are prepared to throw it away and cast it aside. Are you prepared to throw it away and cast it aside? Political leader, Mr. Prakash Ramadar, my colleague ministers and colleague members of the party on the platform, and all of you, sisters and brothers of the COP, part and parcel of the People's Partnership, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We stand here tonight in a great school, a great secondary school, that has been built by the Presbyterian Church and nurtured by the Presbyterian community. The principal, Joan Mahadeo, came from a family that has given their life to teaching and to education. Her father was a great educator. They became connected to the Basanta family, which was another family of teachers and community builders in the Presbyterian Church. And that family became entwined with the Benjamin family, and that family also was part and parcel of the Presbyterian Church, the Presbyterian system, and given to education. They have given much to this country. I myself went to a Presbyterian school. And we must understand how the communities of Trinidad and Tobago have really contributed to build this mosaic nation that is Trinidad and Tobago. It is a tremendous achievement, not only for that family related to Joanne, the principal, but also the whole tradition in the Presbyterian Church, from the Canadian missionaries who came, the Canadian principals who were here, and the local principals that started with Ms. Anna Marais, who again came from a family that contributed so much to the development of education in Trinidad and Tobago. And tonight it's a great privilege to be on a COP platform, a vital political party in the People's Partnership and in the land of Trinidad and Tobago. And this partnership was established as a coalition of parties. Let us remember that the COP came to the coalition because it stood for something solid and noble in 2007, that we believe in our country, that we believe in our people, that we have made a difference in the politics, that we are making a difference in government, and that we will make a difference in shaping the future of Trinidad and Tobago. Never forget that that is why we are here. Let us not forget too that coalition is the future of world politics. Everybody who pulls out of a political party in this country wants to form a new coalition. When you look at the countries of the world and the way the politics are going there, whether it is in Europe, whether it is in the African countries, whether it is in Asia, whether it's in the United States, you see that it's either coalition within individual parties or coalitions of parties that come together in order to govern the country. Because narrow, self-interested pursuits are not large enough to attract the diversity of the country and the diversity of thinking in any country of the world. And therefore, we need to understand that while you believe in something, others believe in other things too. And there will be points of overlap and convergence, and there will be points of differences and divergence. And it is in the coalition and the engagement of one another respectfully that you are able to develop a nation that can make a difference in the world. The 150,000, I'm rounding it off, or so people who voted for the COP in 2007 voted for something different. Remember, they wanted to leave Patrick Manning behind. And the COP, you would remember, under our leader, Mr. Dukaran, left the COP because he wanted to break with Mr. Basdew Pandey. It was a politics that had governed this country for 20 years, with leaders who had been in the politics for over 20 years. And there was a breakthrough and a breakaway to break away from the old politics. And the truth is that while the COP left Pandey behind, what happened inside the UNC was that Kamala Prasad Bisesa, our Prime Minister, emerged as a leader who replaced the then Basdew Pandey. So the grounds for coalition politics between the new politics of the COP and the new leadership of the UNC made it possible. It became possible. It was almost something that was made in heaven, the opportunity to bring these two parties together. And together with NJAC and the MSJ and TOP, together with all of you, all of us, we rallied behind the partnership, bringing free-thinking PNM supporters too, behind the coalition, behind the partnership, in order to move the old regime that had taken us into a politics that the country was tired of. And it has been hard since. It's been very difficult. It's been very challenging. And some people could not stay the course. And some people got frustrated. But the point is that a country cannot be thought of in terms of 5 years. A country cannot be thought of in terms of 10 years. A country cannot be thought of in terms of 20 years. You have to think of a country in terms of generations of building. and for 1,000 years, and as a civilization that you are trying to create. And we are here, now that we are here in the partnership, in order to continue the process of building a better country, building a greater civilization, and building a noble world, so that the people of the world, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the people of the region can experience a superior level of human existence in relation to one another. Because at the end of the day, that is what politics is. How to affect the quality of life and the quality of living of the people who you work for, the people who you work with, the people who you say you want development for. And I want to ask you, these 150,000 people who came together behind the COP and then the partnership in 2010 to carry this movement forward, this revolution for change forward, that made it possible for Anita to be a young, thriving, giving politician in this country, for the chairman of the UNC to be a young woman in a leadership position of a major political party in this country, for Prakash Ramada to emerge as a national leader in this country. This movement that we created and supported, this movement cannot be abandoned. It has to be built. It has to be built. It has to be strengthened. It has to move forward. So, I want to say to you, what has Keith Rowley done to deserve consideration by you or any one of the 150,000 for leadership of this country? What has he contributed as an individual and as an opposition leader that would make you consider him for leadership of this country? What has the PNM done in the last 5 years of opposition that would allow you to consider them to replace the partnership as the government of this country? Any other country looking on at Trinidad and Tobago, if that consideration were to arise, would say to us, you must be crazy. Something is wrong with you. Look at the development in the country. Look at the achievement of the people. Look at what is happening in tertiary education. Look at what is happening in secondary education. Look at what is happening in preschool education. Look at the achievement of our scholars every year after the A-levels. The performance in the CXC. They will look at this and talk about the oncology center that is being built, talking about what we've done in Chagaramas, talk about the highway in Diego Martin, the Valencia highway that we have built to go to Sangre Grande, talking about the education city that we are transforming St. Augustine, Tunapuna into. And as we do those things, somebody looking on and wondering why you are considering another option would have to say, but something is wrong with these people. Let us not take for granted what we have done and what we have achieved. It is very important to take yourself, it is very easy to take yourself for granted. It is very easy to take the people who are closest to you for granted. It is very easy to look at what you have done and say, that is not enough because there is so much more to do. But let us not be foolish. Look where Trinidad and Tobago is today. Look what we have been able to achieve. It is very important to understand. And all our 150,000 people who voted for the COP in 2007, who voted for the partnership in 2010, who voted because they wanted change. They wanted to move from the old regime. To you, I say, come back home so that we can continue the change in the next term. Let me share with you some of the things that I've been able to do because of the opportunity given me to serve in the government of Trinidad and Tobago with my colleagues on this platform. We were able to do what was promised in the manifesto of 2007 and also in the manifesto of 2010. And I want you to know, when the manifesto of 2010 was written, both Winston Dukaran, the leader of the COP at the time, and Kamla Prasad Bisesa, the leader of the UNC, said to me directly, work with this team that we have brought together of all these parties, and we want a manifesto that truly reflects what the parties have in their heart and spirit and mind to give to this country. They said it in different ways, but I played that role. And therefore, many of the things in the 2007 manifesto of the COP made their way into the 2010. And many of the ideas of the UNC made their way into the manifesto of 2010. And I want to tell you some of the things now that reflect the philosophy of the COP, the philosophy of the People's Partnership as we go forward. We did procurement legislation that will end, well, it cannot completely end, but it will certainly curb and restrain the whole business of corruption in politics in Trinidad and Tobago, no matter who is the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We did the planning and the facilitation bill that will open up the country to development in a way that you cannot imagine in Trinidad and Tobago, because one of the things that the old PNM regime did was suppress development through the town and country planning bill. We did a population policy so that we could look at how we develop our people where they are, whether they are very educated or whether they are undereducated. So the population policy is about that. We did an innovation policy to drive the competitiveness of Trinidad and Tobago so that we can make a difference in the world. We identified 5 growth poles, did studies of them and are developing them, and we are pushing 7 areas of diversification. We have, through the medium-term framework, identified 5 priorities, and we have budgeted those 5 priorities for every budget. In the manifesto, we promised 9 policy shifts, and over 90% of the things we promised have been achieved, and we have documented that. We have built the Shagaramas Boardwalk. We have the Idea to Innovation program, the Center for Enterprise Development in Freeport, the Microsoft Innovation Center, over 40 projects completed in East Port of Spain, and projects all over Trinidad and Tobago. I want to close by saying that today the economy has come from decline to growth. We have almost full employment in Trinidad and Tobago, under 4%. Inflation is single digits. Investment in the country, both internally and by foreign investors, is high. The economy is buoyant. And we are at the cusp now of moving this country beyond the 20,500 per capita income that we have now, with greater inclusion and more equity. But I want to say that the world that we are entering is a very different world. You have a financial system that has not yet settled since the 2008-2009 crisis. We have an economic restructuring of the entire global production system in the world. We have a seismic shift in the energy economy and energy markets. All the growth of the future, the real big growth of the future, are going to be in emerging countries and developing countries, not the industrialized world. And we have increasing vulnerability and uncertainty presented to us every day by the arbitrariness of what you might call terrorist activities that you cannot anticipate and predict. In that kind of world, for a small country that is middle income and high human development, the challenge of development is a very difficult thing to negotiate. And I want to tell you that nothing in the years of governance by the PNM of this country has prepared them for this world. And I want to say that the only government that you have here now that will be able to work with you, the people, in a participatory fashion to navigate this world and move this country forward and upward is the People's Partnership. I ask you, all of you in this room must become activists in the field every day until the elections are over. All of you in the COP must work with the UNC to bring those constituencies home, and the UNC must work with the COP to bring the COP constituencies home. And to the 150,000 people from 2007 and 2010 who voted for us, I say, come back home, come back home, come back home. This is your land.